Everything was perfect until he arrived. It was my 9th birthday. Mom and Dad went all out, balloons everywhere, a huge cake with icing, and my friends all around me. A day of laughter, presents, and excitement, I thought. But that's not exactly how things panned out. The party started off as I had imagined. Friends from school arrived, each armed with presents and faces beaming with excitement. We played games, laughed at dumb jokes, and had a blast. The front door creaked open, and in walked a clown, his face painted with a wide grin, his costume brightly colored. Mom and Dad were busy in the kitchen, so I invited him in. He introduced himself as Fizbo, his voice grating against the buzz of the party. Now, I'm not particularly scared of clowns, but there was something odd about Fizbo. His painted smile was a little too stiff, and his eyes seemed weirdly dark. Mom and Dad must have thought a clown would make the party more interesting, and for a while he did. Fizbo twisted balloons into the shape of animals, juggled, and even performed some magic tricks. The other kids seemed to love him. His tricks grew progressively weirder and felt more creepy than fun. His balloon animals didn't seem to resemble anything, and the laughs slowly transformed into uneasy chuckles. And yet Fizbo's painted grin never wavered. As the party went on, I felt more and more unsettled. Why was no one else as weirded out as I was? Why did everyone else find Fizbo funny and charming? It was only when the cake was being cut that things really started to unravel. Fizbo insisted on doing the honors. His hands, gloved in white, moved the knife effortlessly through the cake. But when he looked up, his eyes locked onto mine. They seemed darker, colder. I shivered involuntarily. "Happy birthday, little girl," he said, not breaking eye contact. It was then I could see my mom and Dad whispering to each other whilst looking at Fizbo. Dad looked puzzled and shook his head at Mom. A furrow appeared on Mom's forehead, and she stepped forward. "Who are you?" she asked sternly. The room went silent. The eerie music from Fizbo's small wind-up music box seemed louder, grating against the silence. "I'm the entertainment," Fizbo replied, grinning at her. "I didn't hire you," Mom said, "and neither did my husband." The room seemed to freeze. Fizbo's grin remained intact, but his eyes flickered. My friends looked at each other, confusion written all over their faces. My heart pounded in my chest. Mom quickly ushered us out of the room, whispering apologies. Dad was on the phone with the police. Eventually, the police arrived. They took Fizbo away, his painted smile finally fading. We were left in the aftermath of what should have been a perfect birthday, but turned into an unwanted gift. I still can't figure out when exactly the dream started. They were invaded by this creepy clown, night after night, with his grotesque smile and a laughter that reverberated like a nightmare within my psyche. He was massive, dwarfing me in every way. His red, bulbous nose somehow managed to look scarier rather than funny, and his eyes, man, those were the worst part. Instead of being joyful, they were cold, almost soulless, the kind of eyes you'd find on a predator. His polka dot clothes were a mess of garish colors, a distorted mockery of the joy clowns were supposed to represent. The dreams always played out the same. I would be in an endless black void, with no signs of life or civilization. Then the clown would appear from nowhere, his goofy cackling echoing through the dream. He would start by juggling balls, spinning plates, doing typical clown stuff. But every joke he cracked, every balloon animal he twisted was tainted with a sense of dread. It wasn't just bizarre, it was horrifying. He would pull never-ending handkerchiefs out of his pocket that were blood-stained and grim. And what I thought was a rabbit pulled out of a hat was actually an emaciated, plague-ridden rat with missing eyes. The dreams always seemed to end with him doing something sinister. A recurring finale had him honking his red nose and winking whilst blood poured from his nose down his face. Everyone I spoke to said it was just a phase. My friends thought I was losing it. My parents blamed it on my teenage hormones. Even my doctor tried to convince me that it was just a manifestation of my anxieties, which apparently were normal for someone my age. But seriously, couldn't my subconscious be a bit more original? One Saturday, our small town was buzzing with excitement over the annual carnival. The thought of going there excited me. I mean, who doesn't love roller coasters and cotton candy? But quickly I remembered my dreams. My gut twisted a little. I tried to shake off the dread creeping up on me. After all, it was just a carnival. Not wanting to be a buzzkill, I went with my friends, laughing and joking, trying my best to ignore the gnawing in my stomach. The carnival was in full swing. Bright lights, the smell of popcorn and candy floss filled the air. Screams of joy from the roller coaster riders, the whirring of the Ferris wheel, children squealing with glee at the sight of fluffy teddy bears at the game booths. It was buzzing. And then, there he was, the clown. His oversized polka dot trousers, ridiculously large shoes, and wild red hair were eerily similar to the figure haunting my dreams. I stood frozen, transfixed by the figure in front of me. It might have been me being oversensitive, but it was so familiar. He was entertaining a group of kids, laughing, making funny faces, and for a moment I felt like an idiot. He was just a clown doing his job, spreading laughter. And then he looked straight at me. Our eyes locked. A grin spread across his face, almost a sense of recognition. The air around me seemed to thicken. The happy carnival sounds transformed into a distant, muffled echo. This all felt weirdly similar to my dreams. I could hear my friends calling me, but my body was rooted to the ground. I could only watch as the clown began to walk towards me. His walk was a dance, his movements theatrical, verging on nightmarish. He stopped a few feet away from me, tilted his head, and with a wink, honked his red nose. The tension in my chest tightened. Too weird, man. Too close and too freaky. Time to leave. I made my excuses to my friends, left the carnival, and made my way home. As I readied myself for bed, I prayed I wouldn't get another visit from the creepy clown in my dreams. Compared to what I've been through tonight, I'll take a monster under the bed any day. There's a fascination, an obsession that borders on addiction. It's like a tickle in the back of my mind, a persistent itch. For me, it all started with the movie Poltergeist in the 80s, and the unforgettable scene with the clown under the bed. My dad was a huge horror fan, and would rent out fun horror movies on VHS that we would watch together. If it was a weekend, he'd let me stay up late to watch them. Poltergeist seemed to set the precedent for what was to come. To me, it was more than just a genre. It became a lifestyle. Killer clowns from outer space, House of 1,000 Corpses, Gacy, the list goes on. The fear, the laughter, the terror, it's all a twisted concoction that I can't get enough of. The exaggerated features, the flamboyant outfits, the way they could turn a smile into a scream, it all resonated with me on a profound level. I started collecting memorabilia, setting up a shrine in my room dedicated to my obsession. Posters, masks, props, each piece holding a special meaning. My friends and family thought it was a bit much, but they couldn't see what I saw. The clowns were not mere characters in a film. They were an extension of myself. I watched the films over and over again, studying the clowns' every move, every expression. I dissected their methodology, the way they built fear, the way they used their appearance to manipulate emotions. I began to dream about them, waking up with visions of their faces etched in my mind. That's when I realized that I wanted to become one of them. Not a real clown, mind you, not one that performs at children's parties or in circuses. I wanted to live the horror, become a figure that evoked fear, a clown that could make people's skin crawl and their hearts race. I bought a clown suit, designed after the one worn by Terrifier's Art the Clown. The transformation was more than just physical. I felt a change within me, a dark and thrilling energy that filled me with excitement. I practiced my act, refining my mimicry of the scenes I had seen in the movies. The power to frighten became my superpower. But it wasn't enough. I wanted more than just to pretend. I wanted to create fear, to see it in the eyes of others. So I took my act to the streets. I'd wait in the shadows, my makeup perfect, my costume complete. I would choose my targets carefully, often lone individuals walking at night. My heart would pound as I followed them, the thrill of the chase consuming me. At first, I just followed from a distance, but that wasn't enough. I would leap out, my clownish cackle filling the air, my props in hand, ready to mimic my favorite scenes. The fear in their eyes was intoxicating, and the thrill was escalating, the hunger growing insatiable. I became more daring with each scare, pushing the boundaries, experimenting with terror's limits. The line between performance and reality was disintegrating, and I was losing myself in the character. Each night became a pursuit of the ultimate scare, the perfect terror. I stalked my victims, researched them, got into their minds. It was a game, and I was the master puppeteer. But the game spiraled out of control. One night, I targeted someone leaving work. They were the perfect victim, alone. I studied their routine, planned the performance meticulously, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. It was a scene straight from a movie, a dark alleyway, flickering lights, ominous shadows. I followed them, my heart pounding, the anticipation building. The time was right, the stage set. I lunged forward, my face painted, my costume perfect, every detail in place. They screamed, the terror in their eyes real, raw, exhilarating. But something went wrong. They stumbled, tripped, fell, their heads striking the pavement with a sickening crack. The scream turned into a whimper, the terror in their eyes leading into confusion, then agony. I stood there, frozen, the thrill replaced by a cold, creeping realization. I had gone too far. The game had become reality, and I had taken it to a deadly extreme. Panic set in. I fled the scene, my mind a whirlwind of fear and guilt. The clown was no longer a character. It had become a monster, and I was that monster. I existed in a constant state of terror, waiting for the knock on the door, for the authorities to connect the dots and trace the incident to me. The clowning stopped. The performances, the scares, the thrill, all of it lost its allure. The makeup and costumes were packed away, hidden in the dark corners of my apartment, a haunting reminder of what I had done. I tried to return to normality, to rebuild my life, but the guilt weighed heavily on me. Friends and family noticed the change but couldn't understand the reason. How could they? How could anyone understand the darkness that had taken over me? The movies that had once been my obsession now repulsed me, a reminder of the terror I had wrought and the pain I had caused. I became a recluse, withdrawn, haunted by the memories of that night. The clown was still there, lurking in the shadows of my personality, but buried as a part of me that I now refused to let escape.